Lesson 14, Muladhara Chakra. Muladhara Chakra, Mula means root. It's the chakra that lies at the root of our existence physically. It lies at the root of a spine, at the bottom of the spine, the tailbone. Each of the 5 chakras that constitute the physical body have a certain element. There are 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The element of this chakra is earth, solid matter. The subtle vehicle of action, the karmandriya, is excretion. Excretion is not only emptying your bowels and your bladder, but it's also sweating, the excretion of all the glands that you have in your body, and also when you give birth to a baby is also considered excretion, subject to the subtle energy of this particular chakra that is called apana prana. The subtle organ of perception, Jnanendriya, is smell. The color associated with this chakra is red. And the mantra, not so important, but is part of it. The mantra, the vibration of Lam. The subtle vehicle of action, karmandriya. Karmandriya, karma, you see the word karma there. Karma means do, literally. It comes from the stem word kr, it means do. We will come back to that later. But karmandriya is the vehicle of action. Excretion. There's so many things to tell about this. I already mentioned in the previous class that when we talked about energy, when we need to go to the toilet, there is a huge whirl of energy in our lower body that lets us know that we need to relieve ourselves. When apana prana is not available in sufficient amounts, we end up having difficulty with excretion. So people end up being obstipated, or they have discomfort or even pain when urinating. But also, when there is not not enough apana prana available, the glands that guarantee proper functioning of all the parts of the body with hormones and what have you, the glands do not produce enough of the substances that our body needs to function properly, leading to dysfunction, physical, but also in the nerve system, in the brain and what have you. And when we do not have enough apana prana, well, it doesn't really apply to me, but when you are pregnant and the time has come for the baby to be born, hormones are being excreted into the system, into the body, that generate a primordial force to push that baby out of the uterus. That is a process that involves huge amounts of strength, power, force. If there is not sufficient apana prana, the process doesn't go as it is supposed to be, and medical interference in the form of a cesarean section is then often required. Now, I've never been pregnant, but I know from all those years of teaching, and I've had prenatal classes also, and I have 3 sisters and a mom. One of the things that often happens when women get pregnant, especially the first time, is that everybody wants to provide advice. And one of the things that is often being told is how terrible it is to give birth to a baby. Painful and scary and what have you. So before you have even given birth, people plant a fear inside you that makes you afraid of the day when the day comes that you need to give birth to the baby. This leads to a phenomenon where your energy is being diverted from where it is most needed. Muladhara Chakra. Because Muladhara Chakra is not only responsible for excretion, so the process of giving birth included, but fear is an important function of Muladhara Chakra. Fear is experienced in Muladhara. Out of fear, when we are scared of something, we do not want to feel that, we do not want to experience that, so we divert our energy away from that what we are afraid of. When you're pregnant, your baby needs all your energy, not just food, nutrients, but also your attention, your consciousness being there. Many therapies exist out of communication with your unborn baby, with your hands on your belly and having conversation with your baby in your belly. That's all designed to have your energy there where it's supposed to be. Fear does the opposite, leading to the need for medical intervention when the day comes that the baby comes out. So ignore all these well-meant or not so well-meant advices and simply trust your intuition and trust nature also to take care of processes that have been taking place for millions of years. Excretion also, since we started with Kriya and work towards pranayama, energy control, literally energy control, it is important that we recognize energy. Everything inside us functions based on energy, but we just simply do not recognize that. And the easiest way to start looking at ourselves in a different way, allowing us to recognize how energy is involved in everything, is indeed when we feel the urge to go to the restroom, to relieve ourselves. That is not subtle at all. It's very strong. The longer we postpone going to the restroom, the stronger that urge becomes. To the point it can make us very, very uncomfortable. So consciously pay attention to that. Next time when you need to go to the toilet, ask yourself first, what is it that makes me have the idea that I need to go in the first place? And you will realize that indeed there is a whirl of energy causing a restlessness that tells you, hey, it's time to go and relieve myself. Once you realize that, you start to see that everything starts with a whirl of energy. Everything. Every thought, every action, every engagement, everything is in fact energy. And that will just make the start of pranayama a lot easier. More excretion stories. Fear, I already said, is also a function of Muladhara Chakra. What happens when we are struck with extreme fear? We soil our pants. You never heard of that? We soil our pants, we defecate. Or we involuntarily empty the bladder in fear. Fear is a function of Muladhara Chakra. Muladhara Chakra is responsible for excretion. When there is an explosion of energy as a result of fear, there's no control of the excretion function anymore. And we lose control. Bang. That explains how it works. Another aspect related to fear is that fear carries a smell. If you see, smell function is part of Muladhara Chakra. Every chakra has one of the senses connected to it. To Muladhara Chakra, it's the smell function. And it goes both ways. It's not literally your smell function only, but it also how we smell. So fear smells. A dog that smells fear attacks. A dog that smells harmony, which smells different, puts his ears down, and wants to be patted. Human beings function just like that. We are not aware of it anymore. And human beings are very strongly concentrated on their visual sense, while dogs are very much focused on their smell, which is like 10 million times or 10,000 times stronger than that of a human being. But subconsciously, we make decisions based on smell, especially where it comes to relationships. If you have a partner that you have chosen based on visual aspects, my partner is handsome, pretty, attractive, physically attractive, but then you come close and the smell of your partner is not attractive to your smell particular. Can be attractive to another person, but not particularly to you. You do not feel attracted anymore to that person. The opposite is also true. A person that you do not find particularly attractive, in passing, gives you a whiff of their body scent, can suddenly turn to become very attractive. So smell is very important in how we make choices, especially where it comes to relations. It's not only dogs that do that, we do it too, we're just not aware of it anymore. But it's very important that you are aware of it, so that you next time not only focus on the visual aspects of the person of interest, but you also pay attention to the person's scent. A person who is harmonious has a pleasant smell. Try it out. Ajita used to jokingly say yogis smell like roses, which means yogis who, if yoga is done correctly, are sattvic, have a pleasant body odor, and it's true. A person who lives with anxiety, with fear, has an unpleasant body odor because of disruption in Muladhara Chakra. You will see, it really works like this. Also very important, the developmental stage of Muladhara Chakra is from birth up until the age of approximately 7 years. That's not exact science. Some children develop faster than others develop slower, but approximately 7 years. The chakras, the development through the chakras is 7 years for each chakra. It is the time where stability, safety, and security are the most important in the life of a human being. We talked about children before, and I gave as an example when in school there are children that thrive, that have very high scores at the end of the semester on their scorecard. And there are also children that stay behind, that have difficulty functioning intellectually. And at the end of the semester end up with very low score and sometimes have to double the class because it was just insufficient. I already explained at that time that the fact that the child doesn't perform well does not mean that the child is stupid. It means that the child is disturbed. It is in Muladhara Chakra where this disturbance takes place. And if you look at the family situation, you will see that the child that performs very well intellectually comes from a very stable, loving, harmonious family. The child that does not do well in school comes from a family where there is uncertainty, there is no routine, there is conflict often between the parents, irregularity where it comes to meals being provided. So the child lives with a constant fear that it cannot rationalize and is as a result of that constantly very restless, very distracted and cannot focus. The child that grows up in a very stable environment with fixed routine, with care, love, stability, safety, security, all these elements provided, is in a constant contemplative mood and intellectually functioning like a sponge, soaking up everything that they are confronted with. So children that do not perform well do not need punishment. That only makes everything worse. They need to be provided with routine and especially safety and security so that all their energy is not in Muladhara Chakra. We have to take away their fear and anxiety. Especially in that first 7 years of life, that is crucial because it lays the foundation for adulthood. A child that grows up in a very disturbed environment often does not evolve into an emotionally mature adult. It leads to substance abuse, inability to maintain relationships with other adults, etc. So the first 7 years is very important to lay a proper foundation for proper development later in life towards and in adulthood. Interesting aspect is, I mentioned already, when confronted with fear, there's a possibility that we lose control over the bowels and the bladder. But there are situations where we kind of play with fear in a controlled way, but we kind of enjoy the excitement that we have in our bellies as a result of that. You do that when you go to the fairground and you go into a roller coaster. You play with death, but you know that the chance to die is very small because it has been built with safety precautions in mind. But you hear people screaming in the roller coaster when it dives down into a deep hole. Or the Viking ship, where especially when you sit in the back or the front, you are almost toppling over when it reaches its top. You're playing with the fear in Muladhara Chakra, and that feeling that you get can be almost addictive. Because it is in a controlled way, we just play with it and expose ourselves to this perceived danger. But people can become addicted to that feeling. Like you can become addicted to going to the fairground and do those scary rides. There are people who do this in daily life and take risk in daily life. in the form of maybe criminal acts or abusive acts. It is the rush that it gives that they kind of enjoy every time when they engage. Just to give you a little bit insight in human psychology in a very simple, practical way. Page 2, a little bit below the middle, the fourth paragraph, you see that the importance of Muladhara chakra for our spiritual development cannot be emphasized enough, because in the center of Muladhara chakra we find Surya Bindu. Surya Bindu is the sun gate through which Shakti energy rises up. When Shakti energy increases in strength, we call it Kundalini energy. We talked about this last week. It's the energy that is responsible for awakening of consciousness. Page 3 starts with the paragraph that says the symbol of Muladhara chakra has 4 petals that carry the sounds Vam, Sham, Sham and Sam. What is important in that symbol of Muladhara chakra is the square inside it that represents solidity, the stability that we need for a healthy stable life. But also you see an elephant within that symbol with not 1 trunk but 7 trunks, and each of those trunks represents the material that our bodies are made of. And it starts from the very simplest to the most complex material, starting with plasma. Out of plasma, blood is created. Out of plasma and blood, muscular tissue is created. Out of plasma, blood and muscular tissue, fat tissue is created. Out of those 4, bone tissue is then created. Out of those, brain, marrow and nerve tissue is created, and the most complex material we possess in our body is the ovum or egg in the womb of a woman, or the sperm cells in the testicles of a man. On a practical note, when we find ourselves in situations of big change, the loss of a partner, a big movement from one house to another, or even from one country to another, loss of a job, insecurity, the best approach is to stick to routine, daily routine, and take care of yourself. Based on what we know from this chakra, when there is disruption, it leads to instability, anxiety, which can be very hard to overcome if we don't step in and take control. But how do you do that? Do you need a psychologist? Do you need an antidepressant? No, these are all superficial means. Taking control is really not so difficult. What is required is to establish a fixed routine. Wake up every day at the same time, go to bed every day at the same time. And keep having your... When you have a big change, especially when it comes to relationships, when a relationship comes to an end, often we have no appetite, we find it very hard to swallow, let alone have food in our stomachs. But it is very important that we keep our daily routines. That is the most assured way to gain control and settle down from the turmoil and the mayhem that the change or the disruption has caused. So next time when big change causes anxiety, instability, take control, not by all kinds of complicated means, but simply daily routine. Do not call in sick to work, because that will only make things worse. Just keep going. Use your work as a way to stay focused, as a way to keep routine. It will help you to wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and get moving, because not moving will make everything only worse. I've always found in my life that I'm at my best when in turmoil, because then I go into a mode where I have a military discipline to keep doing the things, and even more than that, than I am normally already doing. Instead of falling apart, I take control in that way. Questions? Okay, we have another Kriya that we will discuss after asana, before the meditation. Let's have a short break.